Alright, hey, it's Mega here, and this is the comparison video between the KO factory spec motor and the stock Sur Ron motor and the QS165 QS motor. Alright, so I'm fortunate enough to have like all three of these motors at one time. This is just going to kind of be like a physical comparison. Alright, I'm not really going to go over the specs and all that. I might like briefly go over a little bit, right? All we're just going to do is we're going to take a look at them, and I'll tell you what the difference are at a glance. All right. All right, let's go. Okay, here we go. I've got the Triforce of power here. All right here. This is the KO Motors factory spec motor. All right, KO Mark II. This is currently their most powerful motor for the Sur Ron. All right. It's got It can go a higher RPM, and it's got fancy magnets and all that stuff. Yeah, this is the best of what they got currently, right? I'm sure there'll probably be something better in the future. Okay, so it's always like that, man. You're always one step behind, right? Your stuff is usually obsolete the next day, type of thing. Okay, here on the left, we've got the stock Sur Ron motor. All right, good old motor, man. I've put many miles on this, many races on this motor, and I finally killed it. Finally killed it with the Electro & Company EMX run controller. All right, just didn't have the torque to get me up those hills, and I smoked it. All right. What I think is wrong with this motor is the Hall sensor is messed up. I'll make a separate video when we crack this puppy open, and then we'll check out what happened. I'm pretty sure it probably still runs. I've tested it before. It's just like something is wrong with the sensor. Okay, I can probably get it running again, but who cares when I got this bad boy? All right. Okay. Anyway, yeah, it's just had a lot of miles and a lot of races on it. I think it's just kind of tired, is what I want to say. Okay, probably the magnets are all weak now and stuff. So. And then here we've got the QS Motors QS165 motor. All right, this is the Hall sensor version. This has a Hall sensor in it, and this is supposedly another. So these are all drop-in motors. All right, you should be able to drop any of these motors in. These two are aftermarket motors, and they should drop into the Sur Ron just like the stock motor. Okay. Now the Sur Ron motor was rated for about 5,000 watts, all right, at 60 volts or something. All right, that's as much power as they intended to put through it. That's why they've never made like a Sur Ron Light B Mark II or something. There's never been a more powerful Sur Ron, is what I want to say. I do know that I think the X160, all right, the Segway X160 has a kind of weaker Sur Ron motor, all right. This is the more powerful of the two, right? In the U.S., we don't have a Light BS, all right? But I believe, from what I heard, the Light BS and the X160, the Segway X160, comes with a weaker motor, all right? Okay, so we're just going to take a look and do some comparisons at a glance. We'll be measuring stuff, we'll be weighing stuff, and doing some comparisons, all right? But definitely this is the best we've got right now, right? The Sur Ron bike's been about almost 4 years out now, right? And so this is the best thing for it right here, okay? I know the Ultra B is coming out, but we'll see what we can do with this bad boy, okay? Okay, so what I've decided to do is I will, as we go along, Hades and Mega will take the measurements, and then I will watch the video later, and I will compile the data, and then I'll put a subtitle down here, all right? The comparison between all of them. Okay, got it? That's kind of how we're going to do it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is price. Okay, here I go. So I'm getting these prices from, I'll tell you where I'm getting these prices from, okay? We'll start with the stock Sur Ron motor. All right, a stock Sur Ron motor will run you $650 from Lunicycle, okay? Pretty expensive, is what I'll say. Okay, and then the next one is the QS165. I got this guy for $440 to my door. All right, it's actually $246 without the shipping. All right, so if I lived in China, probably cost around $200-300. Okay, so $246 and $439 with the shipping. All right, the The KO motor, I bought it as a combo with the whatchamacallit, the controller, all right, the F-SPEC controller. So I can't really give you like the price that I bought it for, but if you go on the KO Moto website, all right, KO Technologies website, for where you buy these guys, they're selling them for $1,499, right? $1,500 bucks. All right, so you got $650, let's say $440, and $1,500. All right, so the crazy thing is this thing is cheaper than the Sur Ron motor. All right, and supposedly it's better. Okay, and then this one is $1,500. All right, so it's literally more than double the cost of the Sur Ron motor. All right, it's like if you were to cram 2 of these motors, you would get this. All right. Okay, but let's talk about power rating. Okay, the Sur Ron motor. All right, the Sur Ron motor was rated for about 5,000 watts. All right, 5,000 watts at 60 volts. All right, so right here it says on the cover here, the QS165 motor is rated for at 72 volts, 5,000 watts. Okay, and so the max power that this bad boy is rated at, it doesn't really have. Yeah, it's kind of so. The thing about this motor is you would need like a really powerful controller and a really powerful battery to get the most power out of this. But KO Moto or KO Technology is saying this motor is rated up to. Okay, so let's go over some external differences. Okay, let's go over the right side covers. All right, so if you guys don't know, this is the right side of the motor. When you're looking at the bike, it's from the right side. Okay, looking forward. So this motor, this is the cover for the hall sensor right here. Right, they all have their hall sensor covers on the right. All right, however, this one has the phase motors on the other side. All right, take a look at this. All right, so anyway, yeah, so these two, they have the hall sensor wire, all right, the hall sensor and all that stuff on the right, okay. Got all the phase wires, the hall sensor connector. All right, this one only has the hall sensor connector on the left. Okay, I think they did that so they could have more room. There's actually more room on the left side of the light B than the right side. So that's why they put this here, is because there's more space on the right side, so they could put more motor. All right. So this one only has the hall sensor on this side, where this one has the hall sensor and the phase wires on this side. All right. That's so they could make the motor wider. Okay. This one has 8 bolts. All right, 8 bolts holding the side cover on. This one has 3 bolts. This one has 5 right here. All right. And so what you would open these up for is to get to the hall sensor if you needed to adjust it or whatever, replace it or something. Okay. They've all used these connectors here. All right. The KO motor has this very similar connector to the Sur Ron one. Okay. And like I said, this is just the hall sensor. This one has like a kind of grommet type thing, and it's filled with silicone sealant. All right. Which one seals better? I don't know, but I do know this one is like a IP65 rated or something. I'll put a subtitle below. Rated motor, so it's designed to protect against water ingress. Okay. So on the right side of the motor, you can see that we've got the motor mounts right here. Okay. And you can tell that the KO motor is much wider because the mounts are so much smaller. Look at this. See how much this sticks out? See how much these mounts stick out, all right, compared to these mounts, all right? These mounts look like they stick out a lot more. Okay. I can like stick my finger right there. It's the same height. Okay, this one, not a lot. Okay, the side covers, all right, the actual that holds the motor together. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts also. Okay, this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts only. Okay, this one has 6 bolts. Both of these have 8 bolts, holding the whole sandwich together. That's what I want to say. Okay, so you'll notice that the Sur Ron motor is pretty kind of thick here, right? Where the QS motor is kind of thin here. This one is about as thick as the Sur Ron motor, all right? And it also has some heat sinks, look like heat sinks on the outside to help shed more heat, all right? So the more mass there is, the more, the more mass, the more surface area, okay? That's what a heat sink is. It adds more surface area, the more cooling you can have, all right? This is an air-cooled motor. It's very critical that, that you can get it to cool down, all right? Because you're not force cooling it with liquid or something, okay? Okay, so I've stood all the motors up, and we can go take a look at it from this profile. All right, you can definitely tell this KO motor is a freaking monster compared to these motors, all right? So the most notable thing is the stator housings, all right? Look at how big the stator housing is. Oh, I found like a kind of chip or something on the anodizing. Yeah, so the stator housing, all right, the meat of the sandwich basically, all right, you got the two breads, right, and then there's the sandwich. This is where the stator is. That's where all the windings are and everything. Is much thicker than the ones on either of these motors, okay? So let's get Mr. Caliper out. We will do it in millimeters, okay, guys? I'll put a subtitle below what the comparison is. But so I'm just going to measure the width of the meat is about 75 millimeters for the KO motor. All right, let's do the Sur Ron one. The Sur Ron is 57 millimeters, where the QS is about 58. All right, so these are really almost the same. All right, almost the same. This one is like a third wider. All right, so you've got a third more larger stator. All right, there's more winding, more meat, more metal in there. All right, so it can handle more power. All right, it can handle more power and shed more heat, or it can handle more heat. Is what I'm going to say. All right. So just for fun, let's go measure how much the distance is from the mounts. Okay, from the motor mounts, I've got 127 millimeters. And so here's an interesting thing to note. The QS motor actually, the front motor mount is actually too wide. All right, I had to shave down the spacer so this one would fit. All right, this is 130. Okay, and then the Sur Ron is 127. Okay, so the Sur Ron and the KO motor are the same. All right, so yeah, that is one of the things I learned about the QS165 when I tried to install it, that the distance, I know, I'm glad I just remembered just now that we were doing this, that the distance from the mounts on the QS motor are too big. All right, so I had to grind down the spacer, all right, 2 millimeters, all right, to get it to fit. So now whenever I have to install this motor, I have to put a washer in, okay, to make up for that space. All right, so when I install this one, I'm going to have to add a washer to it. All right, no big deal. Okay, so let's go measure how big the sandwiches are. I'm gonna, man, I don't know. That's a good question. I'm just gonna measure the KO motor has this part sticking out here. I'm not gonna measure that part with that part. All right. So on the right side cover, the sandwich is 24 millimeters, all right? On the right side one, it's like 36 millimeters, all right? Quite a bit larger, all right? And then the QS motor is about 30 millimeters, all right? So that's got to tell you, the part that counts the most, the center part, the meat of the motor, is bigger on this. The covers are smaller, all right? So that's how they're able to cram, to get more power out of this motor, as they have more meat as opposed to bread. Okay, let's think of it that way. Okay, let's go check the left side cover, all right? The left side cover, I'm getting about 20 millimeters on the KO motor. And the right side cover, I'm just kind of eyeballing this. 12 millimeters, almost 13. And the Sur Ron motor, like about 18. All right, what's this one again? Yeah, this is almost the same size. All right, on this side. All right, the left side. Okay, so you can see, like, yeah, these ones have more bread, and this one has more meat, and the meat is what you want, right? It's like going to Subways and Togos, right? I was gonna give that analogy right there. Okay, okay. So next thing we can take a look at is the heat sinks. All right. So yeah, yes, we do know that the center part where the stator rests, there we got the heat sinks here to keep the motor cool. Okay. So these ones has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fins in between the bolts, all right? Whereas this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fins, all right? This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all right? So this is very similar to the Sur Ron motor, is what I'm gonna say. All right, the Sur Ron motor is like a kind of like bronze, smooth anodized finish. Actually, it looks very nice. I like it. I like it more than just the plain black heat sinks on the QS motor, right? The heat sinks are kind of thin too. Let's go measure how much they are. This one has more fins, but they're thinner. All right, guys. This is 2.5 millimeters. 2 millimeter. Oh, never mind. Okay. Kia motors heat sinks are actually smaller. This Sur Ron is actually 3 millimeters. Almost 3 millimeters, 2.7 something. Let's do this one. Yeah, surprising. Yeah, so I don't know. These ones are about the same. This one is actually the thickest. It's interesting. Okay. That's how many. So this one has 6 fins. That one has 7 fins. But this one has less bolts around it. So there's actually more fins overall. All right, let me do the math real quick. Okay, so yeah, so between bolts, these ones have 7, but there's only six sets of 7. So if you got like I didn't really count them all, guys, but but this one has 42 fins, while these two have these have 8 sets of 6. So this has 48 fins. So these two actually have more fins than this. All right, this just has more fins between the bolts because there's less bolts. All right, we got 6 bolts here versus the 7 bolts holding it all together. Okay, so also a thing to note, as I believe everything has been CNC on all of this. All right, I think the whole motor is CNC aluminum. All right, so it's like a denser aluminum. It can handle more heat. All right. Yeah, I believe it looks like the Sur Ron is like a cast aluminum. Maybe the heatsink could be CNC. I'm not 100% on that. All right, this one looks like it might be cast. All right, but don't quote me on that. Okay. But yeah, so the left side cover, you've got this one has the phase wires coming out of it. All right, the yellow, green, and blue wires coming out of it. Actually, let's go measure the thickness of the, just with the jet. I know it's not super scientific, but we got 8.4 millimeters for the KO motor. $8 millimeters for the QS motor, right? Yeah, almost the same. And then the Sur Ron motor is just about 8, almost. Okay, but this has like a kind of thicker. Yeah, so like I said, that's not very scientific because the insulation of the wire could be different. Okay. The wire lugs, 2 millimeters thick. 2 millimeters thick, 1.4 millimeters thick. Okay, so the QS motor and the KO motor have thicker wire lugs than the Sur Ron motor. All right. You can tell they've been crimped nicely. Okay, this one has a kind of braided jacket on it, or wire cover. This one has a orange wire cover, right? And this one has a black wire cover. Okay, this one has, like I mentioned, this has connectors, right? Connectors to keep water out, right? You tighten these and it tightens around the wire and keeps the water out. Okay, so these are the mounts, all right? This is the KO motor mounts. This is the Sur Ron motor mounts, and this is their QS motor mounts on this side. Let's just measure it, dude. Okay, this one is about 17 millimeters. I'll go from the bolt here. Okay, this one's about 20. Just use the tail on this one. This one is 16. All right, so yeah, it's the same. So actually the yeah, so this one is thicker. All right, these have the wrong size mounts, but what it looks like is the left side cover follows the Sur Ron very closely. All right, for where the mountings are, and then so this one has these ribs on the cover here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ribs. Where the Sur Ron has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ribs also. And the QS motor has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ribs. Okay. So the shafts are different. The shaft on the QS165 is actually meatier, all right? Yeah. If you were to well, okay, let's go over the bolts and stuff, all right? So I believe this is a 17 millimeter bolt. This is a 17 millimeter nut that holds the sprocket on. Yeah, so the Sur Ron uses a 17 millimeter mechanical locking nut as well. Okay, this is a 19. This is from a Honda Grom, okay? So that's why I changed mine too. This one has a 24 millimeter... was it 24? Hold on. Yeah, so 24 millimeters, guys. Huge. The nut is huge on this guy. Okay. The shaft coming out, well, obviously this part would have to be the same, all right, because this is where you're putting your sprocket on. 20 millimeters. 20 millimeters. Oh boy, this one's got a zip tie around it. Let's see if I can get it around the zip tie. 20 millimeters, all right. Probably holding it at a funky angle. Okay, all of these had their own keys when I got them. I'm actually using the Sur Ron key on this one. The key is actually a little bit the wrong size on this one. I found that out, and I had to shave it down because the sprocket wouldn't fit on there. So this one actually comes with a smaller key, like it's not as long. All right, you can see here. That's the key right there. I had to actually shave it down in size a little bit. So this shaft is like kind of the wrong spec. Okay. I don't have the key for this one right now, so I'm not gonna measure that one. But for this one, the measurement with the key and the shaft is 22 millimeters. Okay. This one, the key and the shaft should be 22 millimeters because I modified that one. Okay, yeah, 22 millimeters. Yep, exactly. Okay, so I had to modify the key for the QS motor. No, I had to modify the stock Sur Ron one key so it would fit in here, so the sprocket will fit. All right. I had a choice of which one I wanted to modify. So this one, I'll tell you now, the QS165 isn't 100% compatible with the Sur Ron, all right? Because I had to modify the mount. Yeah, I had to modify this mount. I had to shave the spacer down 2 millimeters, and then I had to shave the key down, all right? So the sprocket would fit. All right, that's kind of disappointing is what I'm gonna say. All right, but as you can see, this one is the correct spec. It's supposed to be 22 millimeters from the top of the key to the shaft, all right? And both of these are the same, all right? And I had, like I said, I had to modify this one. So this one is not
not entirely in spec is what I want to say. Okay, this motor has some kind of bolt here. I don't know what this is. All right, this is different than the other ones. I don't know what it could be. Okay, let's go measure the shaft diameter inside the rotor. This is where the rotor is, right? So we've got about 25 millimeters. This one is really easy. This one sticks out a whole lot. This is 24.8. It's actually smaller. This one is almost 25. So the yeah, shaft diameters are almost the same. I think 25. I don't know. Yeah, they're almost all the same. This one is 23 or 24. It's hard to measure it, man. 24, almost 25. Yeah, so these are almost the same. This one's a little bit smaller. Not a big deal. Let's see the outer seal diameters. .34 millimeters. Whoa! Almost 40 millimeters for the QS motor. It's got a bigger seal. Yeah, so this one is 35. Let's go back to this one. Yeah, so these are both 35. This is 40 millimeters. That's got a huge seal on it. Okay. So this one, I chose. Okay, I get. Nice thing about the KO motor, so you get to choose what color you want. I chose the red color. Okay, it's a red anodized. It's very nice. All right, it's CNC side covers. Okay, it's not painted at all or anything. Aluminum. All right, this one is cast, like I said. It looks like it's like a black color. I'm not really sure. I think they anodize it and then they shave down where the mounts are. This one looks like it's cast also. All right. This one doesn't look like it's anodized. It looks like it's like painted or something. Okay. Okay, for the last comparison is we're gonna weigh them all. All right. So let's start with the Sur Ron motor. All right. So this is the weight. Oh man, this one doesn't have a key. Okay, this one's cheating a little bit. There's no key for this one. But it's got a bigger nut, all right? This is not the stock nut, by the way. They all have their locking nuts. Actually, this one has a spring nut on it still. Yeah, this one still has a spring nut. I couldn't use a spring nut on this one because the nut is so freaking big, all right? All right, this thing is so big I couldn't use a spring nut, so I didn't use it. Okay, but it never came off. All right, that's a good thing. All right, the good thing about these motors is I think when they spin in the direction that the Sur Ron motor spins, it's actually tightening the nut. All right, so I've never had a problem with this nut coming off in the center. All right, unless you run the motor backwards. Oh, also another thing is when I'm trying to get this motor running. All right, on the BSC controller, I have to reverse the direction, all right? For whatever reason, when I run it with the specifications for this, on this one, it spins the wrong direction, so I have to change the direction of the motor. It's really annoying, okay? Also, I believe the number of pole pairs is different. I think these are probably the same. I think one of them was 5 and one of them was 4. I will put a subtitle below how many pole pairs there are. Okay, that's kind of an important thing when you're tuning the motors. Okay, I think if you're using the Sur Ron motor with the KO motor controller, that you need to change the number of pole pairs. Okay, but I believe these two are the same. And I think this one has like one extra pole, one or less, or one less. Okay, so the last thing we'll do is the weight. All right, so here we go. So this is with the nuts. These ones have the keys on there, but I don't think it's going to make much of a weight difference, honestly, okay, without the keys. Here's the Sur Ron motor. Sur Ron motor is nice and flat. It'll stay on there nicely. 15 pounds, 8.8 ounces. Okay. Here's the QS motor. 15 pounds, 1.6 ounces. It's actually lighter. By like a pound. Okay, and here's the KO motor. I can already tell you this is going to be heavier. I think I've already weighed it too on camera. Whoa, this one is 20 pounds, hold on. There we go. This is 20, the KO motor is 20 pounds, 12 ounces. Holy moly, this thing is a beast, all right? 20 pounds. Almost 5 pounds more. Yes, almost pretty much 5 pounds more, guys. So you've got 5 more pounds of windings, you know. That's the reason this motor can handle more power, is because it's heavier. It's got more meat in it, all right? It can handle more power, all right? You want more power, you got to have more weight, all right? This motor is designed to handle more power than the Sur Ron motor, all right? And apparently the QS motor is actually lighter. So whether that QS motor is an upgrade or not to the KO motor, I don't know. Okay, guys, I don't think it is. It seems like the Sur Ron motor is actually still better than the QS motor, all right? Maybe this motor was just for people like me that like broke our motors, and then we want a cheap alternative, all right? But yeah, so there you go. There's a couple. So here's some of the things we learned just looking at all these motors at a glance, all right? The Sur Ron X bike motor, all right, not the X160 motor, all right? It would be nice if I could get an X160 motor and compare all of them. Would be nice, all right? Sur Ron X bike controller, all right, or MX, and QS165, and then KO motor, factory spec motor, okay? Well, so one of the biggest difference is where the phase wires are, all right? So KO motor I believe they moved the phase motor wires to this side so they can have more space, so they can make the stator bigger, okay? So more stator, more power, right? They're trying to maximize the space in the Sur Ron motor compartment as much as possible, all right? And that's how they did it. I believe they move the where the phase wires come out on the left side of the motor, right? Where the other ones have it on the right side. Okay. Flip the Sur Ron motor around. Okay. Okay, so this one only has the hall sensor coming out of that side. All right. This one comes in cool colors. All right, mine is the red one. They have purple, gold, blue, and red. All right. I don't think you can get these in different colors. You'll have to paint them or something. Okay. The biggest difference is the stator, how wide the stator is. Right, the meat between the sandwiches. All right. We found out that this is about a third bigger than these. All right. So you would think it could handle a third more power, but it can handle like 7 times the power. So that makes a big difference how big this is, all right? And then we found out that the Sur Ron motor and the KO motor are built very closely in spec, all right? The QS motor, not so much, all right? It doesn't fit the bike properly. I had to modify some things to fit it. The nut is a different size. This is like a 24 millimeter. This one uses the normal size nut. Hopefully this is a good nut they give you too. But I've never had a problem with these coming out. The key was also wrong for this one, the QS motor. I had to shave the key to get the sprocket to fit in there, all right? I haven't put the sprocket on this one yet. I'm going to probably make a separate video seeing what different sprockets and stuff fit with this. Also, this motor doesn't come with a sprocket or pulley, all right? Nothing, all right? It comes to you naked like this, all right? This is how I got it. It has the key here. It has a zip tie around it, all right? And then it has this 17 millimeter lock nut, all right? Mechanical locking nut, very similar to what's on the stock Sur Ron one. Okay, so like, you know, all I can say is good job, KO Motors. Hopefully this won't have, and I won't have any headaches installing this in the bike because it's the right specs for this. All right, this one is like, it doesn't really fit the bike. You have to like modify it a little bit to get it to fit the bike. And then yeah, obviously it doesn't run with my stuff. So okay. Yeah, so there's more meat here. All right, the heat sinks. Yeah, so if it's wider, you got more heat sink. All right, this has the same amount of fins as this one. We found out that yeah. So there's less bolts holding this together. However, so it gives you the illusion that there are more fins on this one, but these actually had more fins. All right, this has 6 more cooling fins than this one. All right, the heatsink fins. All right, the more fins, the more surface area there is, the more better cooling there is. Okay. Yeah, and so also we found out that the right side, was it the right side? Yeah, the right side. The right side cover on this KO motor is much thinner. All right, much thinner than the rest of these. They made this side smaller, all right, because they moved the face wires to the other side. They made this side smaller. That allowed them to make the stator wider. Okay. And sorry, Hades Vegas not going to crack these motors open and compare them. You know, you can probably check some other videos out there. There'll probably be stuff like that. All right, the seal is bigger on this one. All right, that goes to like, yeah, it's not very close spec to this one. All right. It seems like QS Motor just kind of did whatever they want with this motor. I don't know what they were intending for this motor to be put in, but it fits the Sur Ron pretty good, but you still have to modify it a little bit, okay? And it looks like there's not a lot of controllers that are compatible with this QS motor, all right? You'd have to do some major tuning to get this thing to run. Okay, yeah, I think this one has, this one actually has heat sinks on the side cover, where none of these have heat sinks, so there's even more heat sinks, all right? To, like I said, to keep it cool, you want to keep these motors as cool as possible, because heat is your enemy. Heat is, you know, will demagnetize your motor and all that stuff, you know. And like, yeah, your bike will get slower throughout the race, all right? You won't be able to maintain your performance if you can't keep your bike cool, okay? So, and that's the problem I've been having with the Sur Ron motor. It just gets really, really hot, and then you start losing power, all right? I've noticed that in races, like Supermoto races and stuff, whereas hopefully this one won't do that. Okay. We found out the lugs are actually thicker on the they're the same on the QS motor and the KO motor, whereas the Sur Ron wiring, the lugs are smaller, and it looks like the wiring might be smaller on the Sur Ron, right? But like I said, I would have to like strip the jackets off and then measure how much meat is in there. I'm not going to do that, guys. Okay, and then lastly, we found out that the KO motor is 5 pounds heavier. 5 pounds. All right, I know it's going to make your Sur Ron heavier, all right? Yeah, so you want to keep your Sur Ron as light as possible, but you know, to make more power, I wouldn't mind giving up a little bit of weight, all right? Or putting more weight on is what I'm going to say, all right? It takes more meat to make more power, is what I'm going to say, all right? Okay, and so ends the Triforce of Power comparison video, all right? The kind of like just at a glance comparison of the Sur Ron motor, the QS165 motor, and the KO factory spec motor, all right? Yeah, this thing is a badass motor, all right? So what KO Moto has done is like they've tried to put as much meat as they can in the compartment of the motor on the Sur Ron to give you more power, all right? Yeah, so I mean, that's just how you got to do it. If you want more power, you know, it's like there's no replacement for displacement. Well, that kind of carries over with the electric motors, all right? If you got a bigger motor, it's going to make more power, all right? But this one makes 7 times more power, all right? Ridiculous, right? So it's definitely, you know, the weight penalty is definitely worth it, because you'll get 7 times the power. And then, you know, if you don't, and the beauty of it is, if you're not going to use all that power, it's going to be, your motor is going to be happier, and it's going to be more robust, all right? So that's what Hades-SPEC is planning to do. I'm not going to tune it to the max power. I'm going to tune it to however, you know, I feel it. I
I think with my motor setup, with my bike setup, I can probably do about 22 kilowatts. All right, I've only ridden a 13 kilowatt Sur Ron, guys. Okay, so I don't know what a 22 kilowatt Sur Ron feels like. It must be freaking bonkers, all right? Because 12 kilowatts is already freaking nuts, all right? The stock Sur Ron is about 5,000 watts, all right? And I was able to push this motor to 13 kilowatts, all right? But yeah, it would get really hot if you went up wide open throttle for long periods of time, all right? This one is rated for 35 kilowatts, all right? So, and my setup, I'm probably only going to run like 22 kilowatts through it. So it's probably not even going to break a sweat. And that's what I need. That's what I need during races. I need, you know, the reliability, all right? And I'm not getting it with the Sur Ron motor. Okay? Like, yeah. So yeah, good stuff. So what do I have planned for these motors? All right, the Sur Ron motor, I'm going to see if I can fix it. I'm going to have a separate video when I crack the cover open here, and then we'll see what happened to the motor. Maybe I'll dissect the motor. Like if I don't think I'm going to use it anymore, I'm just going to take it apart and we'll have an engine porn video, all right? Or motor porn video. And the QS motor, I'm probably going to sell it, okay? I'm sure there's some kind of builder out there that could use this motor. Not only, I mean, it fits the Sur Ron, but you can also put it in other e-bikes, is what I'm going to say, right? You can put it in a go-kart or something, so I'm sure somebody has some use for this, so I'm going to sell this one for probably like 500 bucks. If anybody want to buy this from me, please let me know. It would be nice if you were local to me in the Bay Area. Okay, San Francisco Bay Area. We could meet up and I'll just give it to you. Like, I know it works fine, man. I only got to put, damn, man, probably less than 100 miles on this motor, and I never ran it past 4,100 watts. All right, so you could tell that this motor is still pretty fresh. All right. All right, this one is brand new. This one is going to go into my Sur Ron, and we're going to use it for racing, all right? That's what Azomega uses it for. So my Sur Ron is more of a race bike than a street bike now, but I still ride it on the street sometimes, you know. I still do DoorDash with it sometimes. That's what I'm going to say. Okay, but yeah, where I think it's going to make the most difference is Supermoto, because in Supermoto I'm wide open throttle for, you know, a lot of times, all right? And when you're riding in the dirt, I'm gonna tell you right now, you don't really need more than like 10 kilowatts of power, because it's just too much freaking power, all right? But when you go up hills, that's when you need the power. So I say, all right, yeah, and drag racing, okay? So I cannot wait to take this bad boy to the drag strip, all right, with the KO motor controller and this guy. I can't wait to take it to the drag strip, all right? Oh, cost also, yeah. So yeah, this was $650. I think this is about almost 500 bucks, 440, and this is 1,500 bucks. All right. So this is like cost more than double the Sur Ron motor, and you could probably almost buy 3 QS motors for this. All right, for this guy. All right, but there's no denying it that it's worth it. I mean, it's worth it because it can handle 7 times the power. Okay, so. The only way to maybe get more power is to add another like do a dual motor setup or something, or put a bigger motor and move it somewhere, or totally modify the Sur Ron, all right? Just and you know, at that point, what's the point? You know, just might as well just buy like some old motorcycle and then change the motor out of it and put the biggest motor you can in there, okay? So, but I like the Sur Ron platform, okay? It's super light and super agile, and now it's going to have a lot of power. It's just, I can't imagine how fast the Sur Ron will be after it has this on it. All right, it's going to be, like, I thought it was scary fast before, and now it's, yeah. Okay, it's going to be terrifying is what I would say. Also, what other plans I have for this motor are I'm going to test it with the BAC 4000 first, okay? We're going to hook up the BAC 4000 to this guy, see if we can get the auto tuning feature to tune this motor, and then so we can use it, all right? And then we'll see how it runs. If it doesn't run, then whatever. Then we're gonna take the Sur Ron, we're gonna take the ASI controller out, all right? And then we're gonna put the KO motor controller in there, all right? And then yeah. So it's really cool that KO Tech has made a motor and controller combo. Okay, nobody has anything like that, all right? I think, well, for the Sur Ron anyway. I know the QS motor, they sell them in like combination with like far drive. I think that the controller you want for a QS motor is a far driver controller, right? Because the Votal controller, it doesn't work with this. Okay, I've tried it. Yeah, okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That's my plans for in the future for each of these motors, all right? This one is just gonna kind of be a paperweight. This one say, we'll take it apart and we'll see what's wrong with it. Maybe I could use it for something else, I don't know, if I can fix it. QS motor, I'm gonna try to sell it, all right? It's still a pretty fresh motor. And then the KO motor is going to go in my Sur Ron, and we're going to do a bunch of testing with it. And hopefully this is the last motor Hazen Mega will ever need for the Sur Ron. Okay? I hope so, because the money I spent on this, like about $3,000, I could have almost bought another Sur Ron, right? I got to put two Sur Rons together, is what I want to say. Or I could have bought an Ultra B, okay? And with the Ultra B, you're going to get like a bigger battery pack and a bigger motor anyway, so yeah. But can it handle 35 kilowatts? I don't know. I don't think so. When they start making like 100-volt batteries for the Sur Ron, oh my god, dude, these bikes are going to be so crazy fast. It's ridiculous. Just to put that into perspective, okay, guys? I had a Victory Impulse TT, a 2016 Victory Impulse TT 6-speed electric motorcycle, all right? That bike put out about 60 horsepower, and it had a 100-volt battery. Okay, it had a 10 kilowatt 100-volt battery. So, and that bike weighed 475 pounds. All right, guys. So, with this guy, yeah, it's going to be heavier with the motor. I imagine the Sur Ron will probably be around 150 pounds ish, somewhere around that area, and with the battery and everything. If you had a 100-volt battery and this motor and then the controller combo, you're running that 100 volts, and you're running 100 volts, and your bike only weighs like about 150, like almost 4 times as less as that Impulse TT. So it will be ridiculously fast, all right? The Impulse TT was a pretty fast bike. It's not as fast as the Zero SR, man, but I'll tell you that, all right? But yeah. From what I heard, you can do 90 miles an hour with this motor. Okay, 90 miles an hour if you got the right setup. All right. I have gone 80 miles an hour on a Sur Ron before, right? And so this is rated for a higher RPM. Oh, I didn't talk about RPM. Yeah, I think this is rated for it's rated for about 7,000 or 6,000 RPM, somewhere around there. All these motors are rated for about that much RPM, all right? But you can if you run a higher voltage through it, you can run it with a higher RPM, and with field weakening, you can run it with higher RPM, all right? So I heard that you can run this thing at 12,000 RPM, all right? This is designed to be able to handle up to 12,000 RPM. Whereas the Sur Ron motor, I think I've gotten the Sur Ron motor up to 8,000 RPM, and it didn't grenade itself, all right? So that's a good thing. I've had it up to 80 miles an hour, right? So yeah, that's only going to tell you how fast. They said you could do 90 miles an hour with this. I think you could probably go faster than 90, all right? It depends on how brave you are to do this, okay? All right, well, anyway, we'll find that out when we get to the drag strip. Okay, thanks for watching. I think the next thing we'll be doing with this motor, check this video out, is I'm gonna compare all the different pulleys and stuff you can put in it. One thing about the KO motor is that it doesn't come with pulleys, all right? No pulley, no sprocket, nothing. You gotta bring your own pulley, all right? Bring your own sprocket. Okay? They probably figured, yeah, you know, these guys are going to probably be running whatever, you know. The QS motor did come with a sprocket, all right? And I did note that the sprocket, the chain kit is compatible with this, all right? The DB off-road chain kits are compatible. So I will be testing all of those on this guy, all right? But I'd imagine it would be compatible. This is very, very close in specification to the Sur Ron, right? So the QS, not so much. I had to do a couple modifications, like I mentioned. But I'd imagine that you could probably put any sprocket you want on this and it'll be fine, okay? Hopefully they did their homework, but it seems like they did, okay? Thanks for watching. Hazen Mega out. Check out those other videos when they come out.